Everybody, it's Eric alongside Rod here to discuss MSU's blowout loss to the Wisconsin Badgers in Madison, Wisconsin, 81-66. Before we begin, a reminder that you can get Tifnot's logo gear right now: hoodies, sweatshirts, t-shirts, quarter zip pullovers, and totes. You can head on over to tffinots.com/support to find the link. The store closes on February 5th, so it's only open a couple weeks. That same page is up where you can find links to support the show, its sponsors, and even a link to purchase an autographed book, a Goje, from retired MSU assistant coach Mike Garland. Speaking of which, we're thrilled to once again welcome back the OG onto the show. Coach, thanks for coming on and helping us break down the game.
Eric, Rod, it's great to be here once again, although the outcome of the game wasn't not what I expected it to be, and it's somewhat of a disappointment.
Yeah, for sure. We'll get into that. Absolutely. Well, as you mentioned, this game actually didn't look a whole lot different than the first one in East Lansing, December. Wisconsin once again efficient offensively, and a few times it seems they missed a shot, they got offensive rebounds and just punished Michigan State. Foul trouble early caused by penetration from Wisconsin really put any hopes of an MSU run at the end of the first half on ice, and Wisconsin led by 9 at halftime. And the Spartans just could get a string of stops in the second half, which really ended any hope of getting a win in Madison. So now Michigan State falls to 4-5 in the league. Any chance of winning a Big Ten championship pretty much gone. Tom Izzo is going to have to wait another day to get his 700th win. And I don't know, I guess I would head it over to you, Rod. I mean, what was your general impression of the game?
Well, I mean,
besides bad,
there were a handful of things, I guess, positively say. I thought AJ did some nice stuff offensively. I thought Malik Hall in the first half, when he wasn't saddled with foul trouble, was really good. He came out very aggressively, and I thought completely outplayed Wall in that first half. So those were some positive things. Not a lot else, but I guess I'd like to start with this, because I was with asking Coach a question, because it's something that definitely occurred to me in the first half, and to some extent it continued in the second. Wisconsin had guys in the first half. Nolan Winter, freshman backup center, shoots 26% on the year from three. Connor Esigian, backup sophomore guard. We know he's capable of being a better shooter than he's been this year, because he was last year. But this year, only shooting 30% from three. And AJ Storrs is a great offensive player, but he's only shooting 31% from three. All of those guys were, much like the game at Breslin, on fire from three, especially in the first half. And I wondered, as I was watching it, Coach, what your reaction is to that seeing it happen. You're talking about guys who, based on the percentages at least, they're guys you're probably more comfortable with taking those shots, as opposed to some other shots Wisconsin could get. But once they start, at what point do you start to change at least the strategic approach to that? Or was this solely, you think, an execution problem, that guys were expected to close out better, to challenge those shooters better, and they just didn't?
Well, two things, Rod, come to my mind in this game. Number one, the frustration with Tyson Walker offensively, that hurt us bad. And Storr, in my mind, and I said this to Greg Garr when they played us in the first game at the Breslin Center. In my mind, when you say the best player in the league, he's the best player in the league to me.
Wow.
Everybody talks about Zach Edey, but this kid is a player.
Yeah.
He can do you inside, outside. Don't let those shooting percentages fool you. Same thing with Estesian. We know what he can do. He's had those injuries. It takes a while for guys to come back. And, we hit him hitting them right in a stride when they're playing great. They just come off of a tough win over Minnesota at Minnesota. And, the big kid winner, of course, he hits that shot. We're going to give him that shot. You know, we just are. Every year we play them, and they're going to counter by letting their big shoot the ball. If it goes in, well, you know what? It works to their favor. But if it doesn't, it works in our favor. And you know, one of the things is that I think is really ailing us is other than Malik, we just don't have the type of inside presence that we're accustomed to having. You know, we would, you know, if you think about our teams in the past, um, you know, when we would get in trouble, we could go inside. You know, you talk about Nick Ward, Zach Randolph, Andre Hudson, uh, it just Al Alagagne. We could go into them guys, and we knew we could. We knew we could do. We knew we could get a score. But even more so for us, because we're a perimeter shooting team, is that people would have to collapse and dig down and see that we were and I could see it, Rod. We were really afraid of Crawl, you know, because he is very, very, very good and efficient down there. So we had to dig, and then once we dig, if we dug a little bit too deep, now all of a sudden we're trying to close out long, and you know, you get those guys a second to shoot, or either their catch, and the guy catching goals draws the secondary defender. Now we're off the line and we're not there to contest the 3-point shot. So, you know, it was a merit of things. But you know, not to discredit what you said, but I think, you know, some of our offense would have helped us defensively get our fire up and really get ourselves going. It's frustrated when you know, you're playing defense and only defense, and you're not really scoring the ball the way you want to. Guys just don't have that kind of fire that they need to have. It was a great, you know, it was a I think it was a typical Wisconsin Michigan State game, but you know, we just haven't been able to be very offensively efficient against those guys this year.
So
Yeah.
you would,
Well,
so
oh,
you would say, just, I just want to follow up on that a second. So
Mhm.
you would say that in your mind, maybe the biggest issue defensively, more than anything execution related per se, was that it was hard for guys to maintain their level, the level needed to guard that team, because we weren't consistently running good enough offense.
Absolutely. In the Michigan State system, we don't press. Our press
Right.
is our fast break. You know, a lot of people don't understand that. That's why we run on misses or makes. You know, teams that press, they press to wear you down. When
Mhm.
we can't get out and run the way we want to run and run with any consistency, we're not really wearing you down. You know, you know, that makes for a whole lot different game, you know, where we can take advantage of our athleticism. And when we're not doing that, we're playing into their hands. They're not as athletic as we are. So, you know, we didn't, you know, we scored, I don't know what we scored, you know, on the break um, during this game, but you know, we didn't up tempo the game. There's been games where you saw us playing them,
Sure.
and the game was tight. But if you notice, we just had them, you know, on their heels constantly, you know, and by the end of the game, we'd have their tongues dragging, and then in the game we would get them because they were worn down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one thing we talk about a lot here, is the importance of consistently moving the ball up court quickly. Is even if you're not getting transition baskets, and I think it's what you're saying, if I'm hearing you right, you're forcing the opponent to have to get back all the time.
Absolutely.
And it's
Absolutely.
taking a physical toll and a mental toll that
Absolutely.
you figure maybe you get a couple loose possessions from them defensively when it
Absolutely.
matters down the stretch. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I just have one more quick question for Coach Eric, and then I'll turn it
Yeah.
back
Go
to
for it.
you. Um, the other thing that obviously stood out defensively as a glaring problem tonight, and it's been one more than I think any of us would like to see throughout the season, is defensive rebounding.
Yeah.
Just
Yes,
could not keep them off the boards.
yes.
To me, when I look at this team, and I'm interested in your take on it, I don't think MSU's bigs have been great as rebounders this year, but I think they, for the most part, they've been adequate. To me, when I look back over the course of MSU basketball under Tom Izzo, I think usually the biggest separator between a good Michigan State rebounding team and one that isn't is what the perimeter guys are doing or not doing. And especially in that first half, I saw a lot of long rebounds that we just did not chase down. How do you see the rebounding problem, not just in this game, but in general? Do you think it's more a question of we're not getting enough from the wings and from the guards in general, or
You
is it
know
a
what?
big man problem?
You know what? I couldn't agree more. And
Okay.
it's, it reared its ugly head from the beginning of the season. And we've
Yeah.
had a few decent rebounding games, but we haven't we haven't had, we haven't been a typical Michigan State rebounding team all year long. And it is. Our advantage is the fact that our guards normally rebound the heck out of the ball.
Right.
And, that's something that most teams can't practice against. I always used to tell the guys, look, the one thing about rebounding, you never want to get caught out to sea without a life raft. And in our system, our offensive rebounding was our life raft. Like tonight, had we attacked that glass and got all over that glass, now things change a little bit. You
Right.
know, that makes AJ Store have to work a little harder on the perimeter to try to keep his man out of there. And it makes Kroll a little harder and Wall, they have to work harder. And now they're down there battling and it takes some energy out of those guys.
Yeah.
And I saw the last few games I've been watching Mighty Sissoko, and he's really been trying to make an effort, but he's
Yeah.
doing it alone. And you guys have heard the term, in Michigan State, we always talk about gang rebounding.
Right.
Both ends of the court. It's a gang. You get everybody in there, four guys on the offensive glass, five guys rebounding the ball defensively. And that's how you keep people off, and that's how you get at people there. But when I just, boy, it really rubs me when I see guys, whether it's our team or any team, where the guy is halfway.
Right.
He's not really going, but then again, he's not really back on defense the way he should be either. So that, yeah, I couldn't agree with you more about that whole point.
And I think the frustrating thing for me as a fan, it's got to be way worse for you, is they've done it well enough, just enough to let you know that the potential is there to be a lot better on a consistent basis than they have been. I think about the job they did against Illinois, or I'm sorry, well, Illinois was one actually. They did a pretty good rebounding job against a good rebounding opponent, and they did an even better one against Baylor, who's a
Yes.
good rebounding team. So you
Yeah.
look at that and you say you can do this against
Yeah.
very, very good offensive rebounding teams, but yet you struggle against a team like Wisconsin that, is very mediocre over the
Well,
course of the season. It's just very frustrating to watch. And I'm sure everybody there wish they knew the answer, but I think they got to find one.
yes, yes. And it's rebounding is a mentality. And that Michigan State grit and all of that, that's our brand. That was our it when we were in trouble, in our program in Tom's third season.
Right.
We had to make rebound because we couldn't shoot it in the ocean. We had to make rebounding our it. And it is. really frustrating. You guys know, you saw us play. You saw us play as students. You know, everybody that's a Sparty fan knows what our DNA is.
Right.
Yeah.
And you don't see it, it just crawls you.
Well, and especially like I said, when you do see it just here and there. So it's not like you could say, well, we just don't have guys that have the physical capabilities to do it. It's like, yeah, they do.
Yes, they
They're
do.
just not doing it.
Yes, they do. And that rubs you even more.
Yeah.
How do you explain that? Because I mean, we're looking at, we've had a number of years in a row. This is not just this year problem. This has been a multiple year problem now in Michigan State, relative to Michigan State's history of poor rebound, either on the defensive end, the offensive end, sometimes both ends. Is it just the personnel that just happen to be on the team the last few years, or what do you think it is? I mean, it's puzzling to us to try and figure out why they're struggling so much.
Boy, I'm not there every day like I used to be. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's not a hard question to answer. As I said, the mentality, it has a lot to do with it. I think that you know, I think that again, when the ball goes inside and we're playing inside out, now people are out of position. You know, I'll give you this one, and I think you guys will understand this. When we our first year winning the Big Ten, what was it, 98? Yeah, 97, 97, 98. And as I said, we couldn't shoot it in the ocean. Our best play was Mateen's Clee's penetration, and he gets it up on the glass. Fortunately for us, a lot of them went in, but when they didn't, we always got the offensive rebound.
Right.
Because now the team is in rotation, the big has to step up. He's out of position to try to go back and rebound. We're coming like madmen, and we're a perimeter shooting team. And the same thing when the ball goes inside to the big is closing out on our big, trying to contest his shot. He really can't. He's got to spin all the way around to get to it, and there's probably somebody else in there trying to help. Those getting to those rebounding lanes are wide open. So penetration has a lot to do with it. You just, like when AJ gets in there, I notice we don't really get anybody to follow him. We used to always say following,
Okay.
follow his penetration so that if he misses, we're going to get it because they're collapsing on him. So you can get it back. It's just, I don't know if, I know the coaches and our staff is telling our guys every day, but, like you said, there are times we do it and there's times we don't. But I think against teams like Baylor and Illinois, where we know, we're a little afraid and we're desperate, then, we do it. And then other times we, I don't know.
Yeah. It's hard because, their team, it seems like the worse the team is coming in offensive rebounding, the better they seem to do sometimes in the season.
Right.
It's been a little tough. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess let's talk about the game a little bit more. I mean, I think things that, from a shooting standpoint, in some respects, Michigan State was not terrible. They shot pretty well from three, but not many, 6 for 14 for three. Just never really got any sort of rhythm. Fast break points 7-4 in favor of Michigan State, which felt about accurate. I think we sometimes question those numbers, but that seemed about
for
what
sure.
what it was.
They just
Turnovers 8-6. I mean, there was not a huge turnover differential, but second chance points 17-9 in favor of Wisconsin, which goes to the rebounding issue. And then they just they just shot the lights out early, and that and then when they missed, they still got the rebound.
Right. Right. There it is in a nutshell. I mean,
that was the thing. It's funny, and I'm interested to see your take on this because I understand what you were saying about when you're not clicking efficiently on offense, it can affect the other end. But to me, this game felt like the fact that Michigan State just could not get stops against Wisconsin put so much pressure on the offense to be perfect that you're
Yeah.
never going to be able to do that. I mean, that's just as a fan watching it, that's the way it felt to me in the flow of the game. Was like, we can't miss a shot. We can't turn it over, because if we do, we're going to start seeing the lead build for them, never mind us climbing back into it. And to me, that was mostly a function of just not being able to guard them the way we expect Michigan State to guard a team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you're right. And, you know, when I said that the offense, you know, I was really trying to speak from a perspective of bringing energy to
Sure.
upgrade your defense. You know what I mean? But
Yep.
I couldn't agree more in that, you know, when we couldn't stop them, and then, you know, they run the shot clock. I mean, you know,
Yes.
they're going to pass, they're going to move the ball, they're going to shorten the game, and that's to their advantage. Although, to me, they play quicker than I've
Yeah.
really seen them play since I've been in the Big Ten as a basketball coach. I really like Wisconsin's team from the first day I saw them. They caught me by surprise.
Yeah. I mean, AJ Store really changes their athleticism and their ability offensively, changes them a lot. I think, is it fair for us to say right now, I think for a while, we weren't sure if it was a fool's goal that they were in first place in the Big Ten. I feel pretty comfortable saying that they're the best team. I know Purdue, you know, Zach Edey, but they seem like the best, most complete team. They seem like a team that'd be the hardest to knock out of the NCAA tournament, you know, of the teams of the Big Ten right now. That's just my feeling.
Man, I would have to agree with you. I really do. Man, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see them play against Purdue, and of course, Purdue will be jacked up because they know
Right.
how good they are. But I, man, I don't know. Does Wisconsin and Purdue play twice?
Yeah. They still have two to go. Yeah.
Well, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
That's going to be. I'll bet that Wisconsin gets them at least in one of those games. But I agree with you, Eric. Man, overall, and what they do, it's they're solid, and defensively they're pretty good themselves. I mean, they had Tyson Walker frustrated.
Yeah.
Let's be real. You know, he couldn't get a shot off.
That was the thing that most surprised me about this game, is if you look over the course of the season, Wisconsin has let a lot of people shoot pretty well against them. And I guess Michigan State was okay tonight shooting the ball, but it did look to me like they made it extremely hard for our guys to get good looks. You know, you look at how many, we don't typically see Michigan State with many shot clock violations in a game. I mean, we can go multiple games without seeing that. And there were at least a couple tonight,
There were
right?
two. Yeah. Two
There were
tonight.
two. Yeah. That I did think they played much better defensively than I had expected them to. I think it was just a very, very good game for them defensively, because I've seen them enough this year. I didn't think they were quite at the level they were tonight, but hats off to them. Like you said, they made life hell on Tyson.
And see, Rod, when you start talking about 3-point shooting percentage and people shooting threes on them, you know, their gap defense, a lot like ours. They play drop, you know, they play
Right.
that drop defense against the ball screen, and then they rush, come up with their hands and try to get you to shoot mid-range jump shots. But what's misleading in all this, and you said something that you know came back to my mind about good defense. It's not always the ones you give up that they make. It's the ones that you take away. They're
Sure.
attempts. And that's what was happening to Tyson. They were taking away his attempt.
Right.
played his attempt rather than just run up and get a hand up. They were in his pocket and made it tough for him to even get a shot off. And that's the way they play it more, where they're up and you can't get an attempt. Now you're going to get some because of penetration or them get, you're going to get some because you're going to catch them out of rotation and all that. But when they're playing solid and they're chasing, they're there. They're not going to allow that shot. They want to get up into him and force him to make that extra pass or shoot the mid-range jump shot or go to the hole like he did tonight a couple times. And they were just, their limp was just there. It was hurting him, because he just in position or had the angle to score.
Yeah. I always thought, like, even going back to Bo Ryan's era, that was kind of the way they played. They were definitely going to try to take away good twos from you, and they'd live maybe with certain kinds of 3-point shots being taken. But yeah, it makes perfect sense what you're saying, that the strategic approach they played. I just thought they executed it tonight better than I've seen them execute it in some other games, particularly, as you say, with Tyson, just not giving him good looks, where it wasn't even a contest. It's like he can't even get the shot off.
Yeah,
because of how quick they were.
That's how you beat good 3-point shooting teams. You're probably not gonna, have a great contest on every single shot, but when you start taking away their attempts and he can't get that open look, that's a different story now. That's and people don't they watch the game, but most people don't understand that aspect of defense. That's why we had the shot clocks.
Right. It's not trying to toot our own horn, but that is something we always talk about here. That it's not just about the percentage that a team's giving up, but more important, because that can be luck reliant, as the analytics guys like to say. Somebody gets hot, whatever. You can't always control that. But if you can control the number of attempts or the kind of attempts they're getting, that's within your control.
Yeah, absolutely. It is in your control. There's no question.
One more quick
ahead.
question for Coach AJ that occurred to me. I wanted to go back to AJ Storr, because you made a strong statement a few minutes ago that you think he is maybe the best player in the Big Ten, period. We said in our preview that he was the best transfer, so we were kind of underselling it a little bit compared to where you are. But this is the thing that I saw, and I wondered what your impression was. To me, what makes him so good is that when I look at him, the way he played, and it was evident tonight, he is playing perfect Wisconsin style basketball. He fits seamlessly into everything they do. He can shoot well enough. He can handle, he's versatile. He's strong, but he adds he adds maybe a little bit of athleticism and an aggressiveness that they don't often have on their roster. Over the years, when I think of Wisconsin, I think their wings usually are more guys like Klesmit is, who's a very good player, but he isn't AJ Storr. Do you agree with that? To me, that's what makes him so great for them, is he can play the way they want to play perfectly, which not every player can, but he's just got a higher ceiling.
Yeah, he's a very good player. I mean, for his size, he handles the ball. He has great length. He's a scorer. And see, that's the difference. You have guys that can shoot, that aren't scorers. He's going to find a way to score. That's why his shooting percentages look the way they do, because guard allows him the freedom to go out and score the basketball. So he's going to have some bad shots, just like any great player, LeBron or any other great player. A lot of times their shooting percentages and stuff don't be crazy. But they can score. And when the game is on the line and you really need them, they can put you up some points on the board. And where you're right, Rod, over the years, other than maybe Tucker, I'm just trying to think, Devin
Sam,
Harris,
Sam
guys
Decker was a
like that,
different
they
kind of
just never
player.
really
Yeah.
have those kind of guys.
Right. Right. I think it's got to be really exciting for them if they can keep him
Oh,
because,
oh,
he's just about perfect for them.
I'm with you. I mean, he'd be perfect in the green and white too. But
Sure, absolutely. But
but
you know what I mean by saying that there's there are a lot of guys. I mean, Wisconsin over the years doesn't usually even attempt to recruit guys that are, just super high level athletes. They don't
right.
tend to go for those kind of guys. They need guys in that system who can handle a little, who can shoot a little, who can pass, who can defend, who are tough, physically tough. It requires maybe a little different kind of player. And to me, he has all those attributes plus more. And that's the
Absolutely.
part they usually don't get.
Absolutely. 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 Well, going back even to Coach Dick Bennett, they play a style that they had to play to be able to compete in the Big Ten.
Right.
They
Yeah.
couldn't. They can't play the way we play or play the way Purdue played. Indiana. So they had to have something. And what happens is, you know, they want the same quality of player that we get or Purdue gets or Indiana gets. But what happens, the system over the years, kids look at that and say, wow, do I want to play in the slow down
Right.
game
Yeah.
and all of that? And that kind of in a way hurts them in recruiting. But they had some kids that were heck of a players, and and this one here, he's one.
Yeah.
And I say that from this perspective, Eric and Rod, he is in my mind, and I could be wrong, but in my mind, when you see him, because he's going to get an opportunity to play at that next level, you'll say, wow, wow, how good is this guy? I mean, he's good, man. He can play.
Well,
You know,
that's why I said they're gonna definitely hope they can keep him because I agree with you. You look at him and why does he not have a great chance to be a pro?
yeah,
You
he
know?
does. He does. And a very good one at that. In the right system, he is going to be a very good one.
So the only other thing I wanted to sort of address it, we've only seen very small bursts of time for Kohler. He played 14 minutes this game, so we got to see a little bit of him more on offense and defense. And I think maybe surprisingly, you saw him out there oftentimes with Cooper or Sissoko, or Sissoko
Yeah.
with Cooper. Part of that was because of foul trouble with Hall and not going to Carr. But I think it was a little bit of an experiment to see how those players could work together, playing the 4 and 5 together. I guess, the first question is, what do you guys think of how Kohler looked? And, now that he's sort of played more game minutes, and then, how do you think that 4-5 experiment works? Or because nothing seemed to work really great tonight anyway, but I mean, what do you guys think about that?
When you said you meant uh, Carson Cooper and
Jackson Kohler.
Jackson Kohler playing together.
Yeah, right.
Right.
I mean, that kind of caught me by surprise a little bit. They didn't seem to get hurt with that lineup defensively like I thought was going to happen.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But I think there were certain lineups they knew that they could do that and throw those guys in there together. So
Yeah, when they tried it initially, they did it. I noticed they had Jackson out there at the 4 when I think it was Gilmore was in the game
yeah,
giving Wall a blow. But then later on, they did have him out there when Wall was on the
Yeah.
court. So it was, and I agree. I mean, I'm not saying I think that I'm convinced that's a move to go to going forward, but I didn't think they got hurt any worse than any other lineup they had out there tonight.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Were you surprised, Coach? It sounds like maybe you were, to see Jackson getting multiple turns before Cohen Carr ever saw the floor. Because I was.
I really wasn't in this particular game. and I think it comes down to experience and being able
Okay.
to guard the swing. Maybe Colin was having some problems, guarding it, cause your first time going through it and going against that offense, it's
Yeah.
not as easy to guard as you think, because they vary the screen. It's a mover blocker, but they run that screener along the lane line, sometimes on the elbow, sometimes mid post, sometimes low post. So now you can't get a kid just one route to guard the cutter. So he has to, he's got to navigate that. And that can be confusing because you go too soon and you get caught under it, and they'll turn around and re-screen you, and then the guy's open on the wing. You see what I'm saying? And if you get
Yeah.
behind, now he catches it, stops in the middle of the lane, and boom, they're right there to score layups. So it can be difficult. And it's when your first time going through that, it can be tough if you don't have any type of prior experience in guarding something like that.
Just a follow up to that. I'm curious about this. You talked about varying the screens, where they're coming from, when they're coming, all of that. Is that something that Wisconsin's calling, or is that kind of a read react thing? And the reason I'm asking is, if it is more of a read react, I guess it would make sense that they're getting much, much better this year offensively than they were, say, last year, in terms of how efficient they are, because they've got so many guys out there that have played a ton of basketball for them. So you'd
Oh,
kind of expect they'd get better.
yeah, that back screen that they set is definitely it's a read and react. I mean,
Okay.
and the more experience guys have in playing in that offense, the more the more what word do I want to use? The more they understand more of the different options to use coming off of that screen.
Right.
Sometimes they, as I said, they're going to set it along the lane line, and they may set it at the high elbow, they may set it medium, and they may set it low, but they also may step off further and come and get you. Like, okay, Store catches it on the wing, holds it, and waits until he starts to see the post guy or the bottom guy, sometimes it's a guard, coming before he reverses the ball. Now you're caught up into him, and they got an advantage on the screen. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? So they
I
do
do.
all those different things. And you're right. Last year, there were little guys trying to feel out, well, how do we play in the offense and stuff like that. And now they've got it down. And that swing, it's tough to guard, man. You don't know what you're doing, you never win against it. It's tough.
So how did you feel Kohler did? I mean, either of you, I mean, I felt he looked pretty good, and he's looked improved over last year, at least ability to finish and such.
Well, he just needs the opportunity to play more. And it
Yeah.
hasn't been long since he's been back. And he just gotta, we just gotta get him in the ball games, get him some touches, and I really think we'll see his confidence grow. And I think he'll be a low post present offensively for us down there. Hopefully in the near future.
Right. All right. Well, let's go through our various segments. We'll start with the Brothers Who Just Two Gutters. They sponsor the player that Michigan State needs to keep in the gutter, which was AJ Store. I think we can safely say that
Yeah.
didn't happen. If you do need gutter work, you definitely want to contact the Brothers Who Just Two Gutters. They cover both the Grand Rapids area and outside the Metro Detroit area. Do fantastic work. Even in this weather, they'll come out. We all have the snow melting off our roofs, especially if you're on the west side of the state. We got lots of snow, and then the rain on top of it. So you got to have good gutters to keep everything out of from pulling out by the side of your house and then getting in your basement and causing all kinds of trouble there. So the Brothers Who Just Two Gutters, you get 10% off if you mention Final Four. We get your estimate. You can find those links at our support page, final4soundtheschedule.com/support. So I mean, what finished the game with 28 points, 9 to 17 from the field, 3 for 8 for 3, 7 for 8 from the line, a couple rebounds, a turnover. I mean, he was fantastic. So Michigan State, I think, clearly did not keep him in the gutter.
How many guys? I think that's between the two games, he averaged 25 points a game because I think he had 22 in the first one. He said he
Probably,
had
yeah.
28 tonight.
I think that's right.
How many guys over the course of Tom Izzo's tenure in two games have averaged 25 points a night against Michigan State? Not very many. I know that.
No, yeah. that normally
You might have a guy who gets you for 25 once, but he's probably not doing it the second time.
right.
You know, and this kid did it both. So hats off to him. No, he was so far out of the gutter he couldn't even see it.
He had like those heated gutters. He was on fire there. There was nothing
Right.
slowing him down. All right. So then, as far as the Squeegee Squad for Grand Rapids, they sponsor the Michigan State player who cleans the glass the best. And Rod has tied it up at 3. Madi Sissoko finished with 7 rebounds to win. So Rod takes the lead and goes 4-3. He's got 4 in a row. You are on
four in a
heater.
row. Yeah.
I had Malik Hall, who ended up with just a pair.
That's the
and so,
only good thing that came out of tonight is that.
Yep,
that's
pretty
it.
much. Interesting fact: Squeegee Squad, not only they come out and do a great job at my house, but they actually cleaned the windows of the Capitol, which I just found out recently. So they were so they'll tackle any job. You think your house is you're hard. Just imagine trying to clean all the windows in the Capitol. I think that's some serious ladder work, scaffolding, going inside. So that was kind of cool that they actually cleaned. Now, whether that's a good thing or bad thing, I guess depends how you feel about the state government. But they do a great job. Obviously, they did a fantastic job at my house. You can get 15% off. You mentioned Rebound when you go get your estimate. You can find ways to do that at our support page, again at the Final Force on the schedule.com/support. I think we kind of talked about rebounding, the problems, and I don't know there's much more to add to it except that just that, Michigan State really struggled. And despite Madi seems like the only one who's like truly focused on it. I mean, Akins had 4, which is, he was second on the teams, but I didn't feel like he had 4, like as impactful as that 4, especially with all those long rebounds.
Right. And that's a guard's responsibility. That's their responsibility. Get those long rebounds, run them down.
Well, hopefully they can somehow change the mentality at some point here, or maybe just need it. So I guess, that's a question for you real quick, Coach. You mentioned, that 97-98 season, clearly things weren't working and you're like, well, we just got to crash the boards. And that was not something that was not a decision made before the season, right? That was sort of like partway through the season. Is there some point where that just becomes a huge emphasis, and then we're just going to say, hey, 4 or 5 guys crashing the boards, we're not going to worry about floor balance. We're going to force them to not even leak out, because we're going to just, because I think you could say, well, you need floor balance to not offensive rebound, but you could also say the same thing. If you have enough people offensive rebounding, then you're going to force them not to try and break out and score on that, right? So it can go both ways.
Well, yes, you can. But if you're on that, if you're on the glass the way you should be, even when your opponent gets the offensive rebound, they're so afraid of losing it, getting it stripped or knocked out of their hands, that they cover the ball. You know what I mean? They
right,
cover
yeah,
and hold it, so you got time to get back. And that's that's the beauty of it. But when you said, the emphasis became that, we had worked on that all through the preseason and all, we had worked on it the year before, and we just got better and better and better at it. And then I was on Jack Ebling's show today, and he asked me what was the one game that turned the Michigan State program around under Tom Izzo, and I said it was when we beat Purdue.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
At Purdue, and they were ranked like 4 or 5 or something. They had just beaten North Carolina, and we went into their gym and beat them. We beat them by 17, 18 points, I think.
Yep.
And that was when our program turned the corner. But we just mulched them on the glass. I mean, we were just, and they had size, uh they had
Oh,
size and athleticism, but we were relentless. And you know, it becomes a mentality. And I think once you have a lot of success with that, you have confidence that, hey, it's worth the while to go get it. So, and you when you think back, did you ever, every once in a while, some team may luck out and get one over our head, nobody's back. But that didn't happen.
Yeah.
We were sending them.
not a lot. You're right. And I think that's a really important point that you're making, because I think that it's something that hurt MSU a little bit early this season in trying to get their transition game going. It's not enough just to get a defensive rebound. You really need a clean defensive rebound. And when it's one that's contested the way you were talking about, and as you said, you're covering it up, you're worried about getting stripped, you're worried about somebody picking off an outlet
Absolutely.
pass, all of that stuff, you
Absolutely.
can't run.
Can't run. You can't run that split second where you're covering the ball or you're trying to, keep it from getting stripped, or they're closing out with their hands up, they're contesting the outlets. It makes it tough, it makes it tough. But if you go up there and get that thing above the rim and get it clean and swing it out of there, now it becomes a two-step race. And
Right.
we've won a lot of those races in the past.
Yeah. All right. So we'll go to our keys to the game, brought to you by Nudge Printing. As a reminder, up until the Michigan game, the trivia contest is open. So that's going to be open till Tuesday. You can enter for free. All you have to go is to nudgeprinting.com/TFFINOTS. And there you can enter the contest. Everyone who enters gets at least a $5 gift card, which you could use at the store to buy some logo gear or whatever you want. And then the winner will get a hoodie from Nudge Printing. The trivia question is, on March 4th, 2000, Michigan State won 114-63, where Mateen Cleaves broke the Big Ten and Michigan State single game assist record with 20. Which team did he get the 20 assists worth, and which team did Michigan State beat by 51 points that day? So the answer you'll find out after the Michigan game. Now, of course, you can look this up. Coach is laughing because he knows the answer.
Yeah.
Obviously, he was there. We don't know if you look it up. So, if you look it up, we'll never know.
Yep,
So
all's fair. All's fair.
all's fair. We won't tell Nudge, I promise. So again, check that out for the trivia question at nudgeprinting.com/TFFINOTS to at least get your $5 gift card. If nothing else, you'll get a chance for a free hoodie, which is good value. All right. So 5 keys to the game. First key is inside out.
Yeah, it just, in fits and spurts, I think AJ did some stuff, kind of getting himself to the rim. There wasn't maybe just a very occasional post presence. I think Jackson maybe had a couple buckets in the post, Malik, but not a lot there. And I thought when MSU was going through those periods where they weren't able to match Wisconsin basket for basket, like I was talking about, I didn't think that offensive balance, which has been so important to them being better as an offensive group, I just didn't think there was quite enough of that in this game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're on the money. You're on the money. You're on the money. And if we
So
don't,
the second key. Oh, go ahead.
no, you can go ahead. All I was
Well,
going to say is, if Malik is not scoring down low in there, we really don't have any inside presence.
I mean, do you think that's a thing? Obviously, Jackson Kohler provides that. He provides some sort of post presence, not nearly as refined as some of the players in the past, but he's a sophomore and he's hardly played this year.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there's time for that to develop to become a significant force for Michigan State this season?
Could you
for Jackson Kohler? I mean, do you think he can become the post presence they need this year?
Oh yeah, I do. I really do. It's unfortunate that he got hurt early.
Yeah.
He would have got more experience, and now by now, you could throw him in there and say, hey, we're going to run some things to get him some post ISOs and low post ISOs. And, we'd have got something out of him, and he can pass the ball, while he's down there. He's good offensively, but it's just, he hasn't had opportunity to because of the injury.
Yeah. So the second key to the game was Malik and Wall. And so I thought, to your point, Rod, I think, Malik was definitely the better of the two players the first half, and then the foul trouble really, sent him back and struggled to get going offensively in the second half. But Wall never really played as bigger role, I don't think. So I think that was sort of a win for Michigan State on some level.
Yeah, it just wasn't as critical as I thought it might be.
Yeah. Right.
It was like we talked about in the preview. It was good to see both guys come into the game relatively healthy, because that hasn't been the case. Either one or the other of them have been injured, missed the game, or like Malik, the game earlier at Breslin, he was sick leading up to it and he played, but he clearly wasn't himself. So it was good to see them both kind of in a normal state of affairs. I really liked Malik's game in the first half. I mean, that foul trouble, what he sit like the last 8 minutes plus.
Yeah.
Probably,
I mean, he was, the way he was playing, he might have had 15 by halftime.
Yeah. He's playing well.
Yeah. And just really aggressively. I mean, he's got his mind set where it needs to be when he's looking to tear the rim down. And he was tonight. It was really impressive. And then the second half, as you said, Eric, I didn't think he was able to get back in the flow in the same way. But as you also noted, Wall really didn't do a lot statistically in this game. He didn't have to. Yeah. That's the unfortunate thing. They didn't need him the way they normally do. But yeah, you'd say Malik had the edge, but it didn't matter as much for Michigan State as I thought it might.
Well, right. There's always there's always a side factor, or someone who in big games, someone that you're not expecting.
Yeah.
Through, and it was a Stegen tonight.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's in the score was the points that he scored.
Yeah.
Take those points away, and now you got a game that comes down to the wire. Although going into the game, we knew that he was capable, but he hadn't done it all season, and he decides to show up tonight.
Yeah.
So third key to the game was defensive rebounding. I don't know if there's more that needs to be said about this. I think we've gone. I mean, just to give some numbers. Yeah, it's 43% for Wisconsin defensive rebounding rate. And Michigan State was like 26%, as a counter.
And what did they shoot from the floor? I don't know the numbers in front
they were 50. They were they were a little under 50% from the field, I think.
Okay,
let's see, they were 50.9% from the field.
Okay.
So they had
So they shoot 51% and they're grabbing 40-some%.
I mean,
so
you're like
shots.
75%. Yeah.
You can't win a game like that. You just can't.
You can't win. You can't win. And we don't turn people over. So that doesn't balance.
Right.
And
that was exactly the way we put it in the preview, Coach. What we said was in this particular point, we said, you're not going to have any kind of substantial advantage at all in turnovers. Maybe if you're lucky, you might be +1 against these guys. So you're not going to do that. You also know that Wisconsin rebounds on their defensive end really, really well. I think they came in 7th in the country. Right. So you're probably not going to get a ton of offensive rebounds yourself. So it meant you have to do the job on the defensive boards if you're Michigan State, because if you don't, that's going to be the area where Wisconsin's just going to have a lot more scoring opportunities than you do. And both teams shoot the ball well. So if they're getting more chances, it stands to reason you're going to have a problem. And that's exactly what happened.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. That's not really deep analytics. That's just kind of obvious. That's like simple mathematics there.
Well, it's what it is, the analytics guys will we'll talk about that stuff, and some people think that, oh, it overcomplicates things or it doesn't capture the true essence of the game. But if you boil it down to its the most simple form of what's being measured, it's that. It's that,
Yeah.
hey, they're going to get more chances to score than we do. You
Right,
know, that's everybody can understand that. And that's the truth. That's what it means.
right, right. It's hard for me to believe people get paid for something that's obvious, but
Yeah.
I guess that's modern day basketball or football.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes if you make something simple complicated, they say, "Oh, it must be a different or new way of looking at things," and it's
I
just the
might,
same thing, right?
you know,
That's the
on that,
exact same thing.
uh,
Exactly.
that, that,
Exact.
that brings to mind a quick question I'd like to ask Coach. Uh, there was a press conference, and I think it was after the Northwestern game, which was a very frustrating one to watch because I know I felt, I don't know about you, that a lot of that had to do with Northwestern just being a lot tougher and more physical than Michigan State was. There were other things too, but I felt like they beat us that way. And it's not, obviously it's not acceptable in a Tom Izzo program. But in the post game press conference, he made a comment. Coach Izzo made a comment about, it was perceived as a negative comment about analytics. And I know that the Michigan State program actually, that's not discarded. That stuff gets factored into everything that's done. But I wondered why, to me, it sounded like what he was saying is, look, you can quote stats, but that's not going to tell you what's in a guy's heart, how hard he's playing, his mentality, and that those things matter even more sometimes. Is that what you took from it, or was there something else I'm missing?
No, that's exactly what he was trying to say. And, these I have my opinions about analytic guys. I really do. And I know a lot of seasoned basketball coaches and players have some issues with all of that too, because the game is the game and we know that. Are we saying that the stats don't matter? No, they do matter, and you do take, valuable information from them and put it into the game, but it has to be executed.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
And that comes down to
Right.
a whole nother thing. Just because the number is a certain number, and if you do this number and you get to this number, then you'll win. Okay, yeah, yeah, okay, yeah. You got a great, as Judd Heathcote used to say, you got a great flair for the obvious. Yeah, yeah, that's going to happen. But now
Right.
getting someone and having someone able to do that is a whole different
Right.
story. It just is. It comes down to execution and having players that have the ability to do that. And in our game, in football, and even baseball, hockey, any of team sports, it comes down to, you know, as I said, execution, but a willingness and a grittiness to be able to do that. And in our games, unfortunately, there's defense. There's
Right.
defense. There's someone trying to stop you from doing what you do, and then you're trying to stop them from doing what they do, and that has to be taken into consideration. And sometimes it's number guys, well, get out on him, and when he shoots under 30%, they lose. Well, okay, when Steph Curry shoots under, so stop him. If it's
Right.
that easy, big boy, then
Right.
get out from under the computer, move away, and you go out there and experience and see how that's done. And that's that, you know what? Tom handled it. Tom handled it a lot better than I would have, because
Yeah.
here's a guy. Most of those guys, they're computer guys, and a lot of people like them because they can put a number to something. and
Yeah.
and think, oh boy, I know these numbers. I know if this works here, then that's what the game is. No, it's not the game.
Right. I think, to take it out of this sport for a second, I think a classic example of what you're talking about is what the Lions have done this year. Because they do marry these two things. You look at how aggressive they are, and
Right,
some of that is a function of the
right,
way that the analysis of the game has changed. Said, you know what, it makes sense to go forward on fourth down more than teams traditionally
right,
have. But
right.
what's making it all work? It's the fact that Amon-Ra St. Brown can catch a pass 2 yards short
Hey,
of the marker and
right,
fight his way to get it.
right.
That's something that analytics doesn't measure. It's something
Exactly.
else.
Yeah.
Exactly. If you had Mike Garland out there trying to make that same catch, it wouldn't work. You lose. It's a big difference, man. It's
Yeah.
not
Unless I was
Well,
covering you. Yeah. Then
not
it might be
rocket science, as Eric says. It's not rocket science.
it.
Stop trying to make it into that.
So the fourth key to the game is pace, and we mentioned that Michigan State did not get out running, did not keep the pace. It's interesting because Wisconsin, despite playing a slowish game, they still score a lot of points. I mean, just speaks to their efficiency. They hit a
yeah.
number threes and scored a bunch on the line as well. So, but
I,
the pace was not where I think Michigan State wanted it.
no, not at all. And
A lot of
that's
half court.
as we talked about in the preview, that's not even just about getting into transition. It's also about how quickly are you getting into your stuff offensively? Are you
Right.
generating good shots, early in the flow of your offense, so you're not finding yourself in a position Michigan State, I think, found itself in too often tonight, where the clock's ticking down 5, 4, 3, and you don't have even a prayer of getting a good look.
Right.
And I just didn't think the pace was where you wanted it or needed it to be if you're Michigan State. Because I don't know about you, Coach. We'll ask you this. I think even if you're talking about in the half court, this team for sure is at its best when it's playing fast, when it's getting into sets quickly, guys are moving, the ball is moving with a purpose, and it's just it feels faster. I think they struggle when they try to slow it down or find themselves slowing it down. I'm sure it's not trying to.
Right. I mean, that it's the essence of our game, and in particular with this particular team, we need
Right.
to get out and run. And when we do that, you know, uh, like the Baylor game, I mean, we were we were getting up and down, we were getting
Yep.
wide threes in transition, we were getting to the basket, we were able to get to the glass because we're running, and then they're trying to catch us, so they're not in position to
Right.
keep us off the offensive glass. And that's another thing about, when we're running, it's so much easier to offensively rebound the ball in transition than it is
Yeah.
when you're in the half court, because they're not set and they're in a scramble, and it's easier to get to the ball. So
How
a lot of that
how
has to do with just what you're saying.
yeah, how often do we see a guy miss a layup in transition where the shot gets contested and there's an easy follow? I mean, all the time,
Yes, yes,
So yeah, exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
yes, yes.
So the fifth key to the game was Cole, the Cole Center, and Michigan State was 4-2 coming to this game in the last 6. Now they've dropped to 4-3. So not a house of horrors like it was under Bo Ryan, but obviously didn't work out this time. And when you get down as much as you do, it's hard to
Yeah.
come back with the crowd, with a hostile crowd.
But I didn't, for my 2 cents, I didn't, and it's also tough to say, well, how much difference did a building make
Right.
when you were down by as much as I didn't think Michigan State crumbled under pressure. I just thought they got outplayed. And I think
Yeah.
if that game happens on in a court on a cornfield, it's probably the same outcome, with no fans, or during COVID with no
Yeah,
fans, right?
yeah,
Because it was about the way the game was played. But I did want to ask you for your take on this, Coach. When we talked about this, the one thing I thought, and far, far better than us, it seems to me that some places besides the fact, on top of the fact that you're playing a really good opponent, there can be kind of a psychological burden for the players if they haven't had any success there. Like I think with this team, Mackey Arena, most Michigan State teams, most teams, period, going into Mackey Arena, it probably feels that way. I did think the fact that most of these guys on Michigan State's roster have had success at Kohl Center, like Eric said, they're 4-2 there
Right,
over the last six.
right,
That
right.
that would maybe make it easier. Am I full of it, or is there some truth to that?
No, you're absolutely right. And the Kohl Center, in terms of having fans in there, they're always, there's a sellout. It's just like at the
Right.
Breslin Center.
Yeah.
But the craziness of the crowd and all that is just not the same as if you're playing in Mackey or in, Assembly Hall. That's not the same.
Yeah.
And I don't want to blame their fans because you know how it is in football in that football stadium, but I think it has a lot to do. They have a modern arena and it's more of a pro like arena.
Okay.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? It's
I
bad.
do.
It's more leisure where we're talking about, we're talking about, when you're playing in Mackey, that thing comes from back in the 50s and 60s, and
Uh,
they're right on top of you, and there's nothing in there but bleachers, and they're just going bananas, and I mean the sound is deafening, it's not as big, and it's just it's hard to play in there, I always thought, even though they weren't at the top of the league all the time, but when you go and you play in the barn in Minnesota,
yeah.
and I'm telling you now, boy, you better come with your A game. Otherwise, they'll beat you in there because their fans are, whew, and the noise and whew, it can get electric in there as well.
I always say this to people. I was really lucky as a little kid. I got to see Magic play 4 times over the 2 years at Jennison. I've
Hmm.
never I've never been in any building in my life that was as loud. Like you would feel the stands shaking. It felt like an earthquake. That's how loud the volume was. And Williams Arena, I have not been to a game at Williams, but it's always felt to me, because it's a similar age and everything to
That's
Jennison,
right.
like it's maybe just a little bigger version
Right.
of what
Yeah.
Jennison was. And when they've had good teams over the years, you can feel that coming through the
No
television set. So
question.
I don't
No
I
question.
don't doubt anything you're saying. The other part of it, which was, I imagine, a real challenge for people, is the fact that you were playing on a stage for a lot of those years,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you go flying
Elevator.
off. And
Yeah.
I think I've got this right. I want to say the first coach I ever saw deal with that was Judd. Judd started, I remember in the 80s at some point, I think it was, Judd started bringing a stool, and he'd
Yeah.
sit on the stool up on the floor so
Right.
he wasn't below it the way other people have been. But I would think like guys going diving for a loose ball probably had that in the back of their mind somewhere, that they could go
Yeah.
flying off the edge. And it makes
Yeah.
it tough. It's just another thing to deal with.
Yeah, but it's a great, when the floor is still elevated, Rod, it's just not as high as it.
Right.
Yeah.
I knew they'd made changes.
But I'm
Yeah.
gonna tell you, man, I played on that floor a few times and played there in the summertime a lot because my best friend was a football player at the University of Minnesota. But I mean, it was a great floor to play on. It was, you could get a ton of spring off of it, and it was elevated, and it was just basketball-y, man. I mean, yeah, you could go off the edge, but it was so far off, so
Yeah.
aprons were just huge. So, guys weren't as afraid to go off the edge as you might think. but
Okay.
everybody knew it was there. But man, what a great arena for basketball.
Yeah. And I guess getting back to what you were saying about Cole, just to wrap that up, it's always struck me the building that it reminds me of a little bit, and that I think maybe has even a little more of that pro atmosphere you were talking about, is Value City in Columbus. You think
Exactly.
they're similar? Yeah.
Same thing. Same
Yeah.
thing. Whereas when you used to play in St. John,
Oh yeah.
whole
Yeah.
different deal, man. And that's why
Absolutely.
some schools like Duke, they'll never change their arena.
Right.
And why? Why? I mean, you got a home court advantage and #1 team in the country. You know, why why change? You know,
Uh,
let's keep our home court advantage.
have you seen the new arena that Baylor just opened?
No, I have not.
Yeah, they built, so it's a new building, so state of the art, but it only seats like I think 7,500, something
Mhm.
like that. And I think they're trying to capture that while still having, the nice locker rooms and all that stuff. So it'll be interesting if that's a trend that we see.
Yeah, it would be. It would be. I know that's what I would want. I'd take environment over modern day arena as a head coach anytime. It's the fans, that make the arena. It's not the arena that makes the fans.
Yeah, no question. And especially where you put your students and, whether you put them behind the
Yep.
basket in the upper deck versus right on the floor makes a huge difference. I can just tell watching different Big Ten games, like, Iowa, they're behind the basket. They're not nearly as engaged as they're like Michigan State with the zone, where it goes wraps almost all the way around the court.
Exactly.
And you wonder too, with, high definition television, and it might be harder to fill the arena. You'd much rather have a full 9,000 seat arena than a 9,000 people in a 14,000 seat arena. Right. So,
Of course.
yeah. So, well, before we go, I just wanted to ask, again, reminder that Coach wrote this book, Agoge, right? I'm pronouncing that right, I think, right?
Agoge, yes.
Agoge, yeah. It's fantastic. You can get an autographed copy if you just go to the link we have on our support page. That's probably the easiest way, or that's probably the easiest way. Just so the tiffknots.com/support. There you can find the link to get the autographed copy. One of the things we didn't have a chance to talk to you about last time is I had a question. You mentioned that you took on a couple of foster kids when you were for you and your wife.
Absolutely.
My family did fostering for a refugee from Guatemala. And what was it that led you to decide to do the fostering? Because my impression was it wasn't a relative, and that's oftentimes why people foster.
They weren't. That was right at the peak of the crack cocaine epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
And they were searching for foster parents for women who were, strung out on crack cocaine. And they had a special program set up for those mothers that if they would get into the program, get cleaned up, they would put their children in foster care. And, so we, a social worker friend of ours connected us, and we decided to do it. I mean, it was very rewarding, but the condition, the conditions that those kids would come to us were, you wouldn't believe it. I mean, I described some of that in that book. The one young man, interestingly enough, that you would ask me that question, the one young man that I was talking about in there, Donald, he has some health issues and some learning issues because of that now. And now he's an adult, but because of what happened, he has some problems.
Yeah.
We just we've always, my wife and I, Cynthia, we've always felt that we were obligated to help others whenever we could. So that's always been our passion, basically all our lives. If it wasn't for one of the players, one of my high school players having to move in with me, or just sometimes, one of my daughter's friends couldn't get along at home or whatever. We've always tried to help out in that regard.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, again, highly recommend the book. I know Rod feels the same way. It was there's so much insight into there. There's certainly
Absolutely.
there's it's one of the things. It's interesting because you draw all kinds of parallels. I mean, you see basketball as I guess, a metaphor for life, or maybe that's the wrong word, but that there's so much that is similar to basketball and life is, the struggles, the things you try and do to excel at both are crossovers, right? They're in fact, they're the
Absolutely.
same. Yeah. So it's really great how you put those together. But, and I always find it certainly being part of the show the last couple of years, I've been really amazed at, all the different ways, the nuances, the ways you can be successful in basketball. Like, might be a great shooting team. You might be rebound. It's just, there's not like one formula. It's not just like one way of doing things. It's just similar in your book. You talk about people having different talents and different sort of things they bring, and that they do different, you had the same fundamentals of being successful are they're always the same, but how you
Absolutely.
express it is different. And so that's what I feel like it's kind of neat with basketball too. You
Yeah.
fleshed out in the
Yeah.
book.
And you hit the nail on the head, and that's what I'm trying to get through to the reader is that basketball has become such a popular game worldwide. You
Right.
know,
Sure.
all of course is big in our country and maybe bigger because of the number of people that attend the games. But in popularity, you guys know that right now, uh, millennials and I mean, maybe even before millennials, basketball has just taken off and it's the world game. I mean, everybody knows basketball stars. You can go to China, you can go to the Congo in Africa, you can go to Russia. I don't care where you go,
Yeah.
basketball has become uh, 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 just a a very popular game in modern times, and I think Eric, a lot of it has to do that it is so close. Like you see other sports, but it is so close to what life is. I mean, you can see a game play out, and then you can take that game and you can pull out of their analogies that can
Yeah.
be used, in an everyday life situation. That's
Hmm.
basically the same thing, So, that's what I'm trying to drive to get across in the book. And that was a great question. That was a great question. And boy, it's been interesting. After our last show with you guys, we had a lot of people, a lot of your viewers have been very good to us in terms of reaching out to us for books, and
Oh,
I hope more people will continue to
Oh,
do.
that's great. That's great to hear.
that's great to hear. And we have continued to mention the book in subsequent episodes because I do think it's um it's a good read, and I think it's an important read too. Particularly, but not exclusively for Michigan State fans, because even if you weren't a Michigan State fan, there's a lot there. I'm not sure how many non-Michigan State fans we've got listening to us, but I think that's true. And so I think we're both Eric. I'm speaking for Eric here, but we're both really flattered and happy to hear that that was the case. And that's the objective, and I'm glad that it's happening. And we're helping to get some people uh, to get your fantastic book.
Well, actually, you are. You are, and I really appreciate that. And I'm going to actually be out at the Rebounders Club, out at the um, Michigan State Credit Union Rebounders. That's where they hold the Rebounders at the
Right.
um,
Okay.
out at the Michigan State Federal Credit Union, and I'm going to be out there on the 1st with a book signing out there. So if you have
Oh,
any
cool.
that are in the area and they want to stop by and and get an autographed copy, they're more than welcome to do it. That'll be like at from 10:30 to 12 o'clock on the
Fan-
first.
Fantastic.
All right. Well, the only thing that makes me feel a little bit better about tonight is that we do have the Lions playing for a chance to make the Super
Oh.
Bowl on Sunday. I think it's been a good distraction. I think the best part of it about it for me anyway is that the talk of Michigan's national championship lasted about one day,
Yeah.
and then it's just been downfire. It's been taking over
Exactly.
the rest
I
of the
love
state.
that. I love,
And I
100%
think so.
right.
love
It's
that. I love that.
it's been a good diversion, and so no one's really talking about it. So it's been kind of nice that way.
Absolutely.
I think we'll leave it there. We've gone a little long, so really, again, we're super happy to have you on. Thank you so much for coming on and giving an analysis. I always learn a ton, and I don't even plan on it. I'm like, I think, oh, we'll just talk about the game, and there's so much more stuff that I learned, and so I really appreciate your insights, Coach.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me, and let's do it again.
Yeah, go green. We'll again, just a reminder, go to the support page. You can find not only the link to Coach's book, but the links to our sponsors, the Brothers Gutters, Squeegee Squad of Grand Rapids, and Nudge Printing. Also, you can go and get a link to the contest for which team that Mateen Cleaves had a 20 assist. The answer will be after the Michigan game. So if you can answer that, you get to enter in for a free hoodie. So until next time, the Final Four is on the schedule. Go green.
All right.